So it's Motzei Shabbos, Parshas Kisisa, Taf Shin Pei Beis, and appropriate for Kisisa. We're starting to learn the Hakdama on the Sefer haGuela Vaal HaTemurah. And this is going to be, Mitzvah Hashem, a series on this Sefer. Hopefully we'll be zoicha to finish the Sefer someday. So let's start right at the beginning, and we'll summarize afterwards. So b'medrash Rabbah b'Megillas Rus.
What's this over here? Perkei Pesicha.
So before the Sefer starts, they printed the Pesicha by Rabbi Yosel Ashkenazi, Rabbi's Gabbai, who explains the history behind the Sefer. And I copied a lot of it in my Rebbe biography, but basically it talks about how the war began and how people were confused by it, and the Rebbe set them straight, and what he said in Shalosh Shudas, and then afterwards in the Sefer that was put out. By the way, the Sefer is made from his Shalosh Shudas Torah, except for the Hakdama. The Hakdama is written by the Rebbe B'atzmai. So keep that in mind. And certain sections in the Sefer are also Miksav Yad Kodsheh. It'll be indicated when that is. B'medrash Rabbah b'Megillas Rus Perek Zayin Ois Yid Aleph. Al Kosev V'zois Lefanim B'Yisrael haGuela Vaal HaTemurah. The pasuk says, the pasuk Pshat is talking about Boaz making a kinyan on the land that belonged to Elimelech and Machlon and Kilyon and marrying Rus. So it says that the Goyal was supposed to do it first, Ploni Almoini, right? And then since he didn't want to, he gave it over to Boaz. And he made a kinyan with a shoe. It says this was the minig in Klal Yisrael, that when they did it with a purchase, one person took off his shoe and gave it to the other, and that was how they did the kinyan. That's called kinyan chalipin. Okay, but now we're going to learn the Medrash. So the Medrash says, Reb Chia, Pasar Kra B'Yisrael. Reb Chia learns this. These words are remez to something about the whole Klal Yisrael. Begoy Apaya D'Yisrael. So Begoy Apaya is Aramaic for in the faces of. So what does that mean? Because the pasuk says Lefanim B'Yisrael. Lefanim, upon him is a face. So V'zois Lefanim B'Yisrael. This relates to the leaders of Klal Yisrael. This is the pshat said by the Radal in the Pirush on the Medrash Rabbah.
Who's the Radal?
Reb David Luria, a few hundred years ago, he wrote a Pirush on the Medrash. So, Begoy Apayid Israel Lisha Avar Hayu Mekalsin Ala Geula, that in the past they praised Hashem for the Geula. Shenemar Zek Heli V'Anvehu. At the Shiras Hayam, when they said Az Yashir, they said Zek Heli V'Anvehu. V'Achshav, but now Ala Temurah. Now they're praising Hashem for a substitute. Shenemar Vayamiru Es Kvoidam B'Savni Shor Oichel Esav. They replaced their glory, which is a kinoi for Hashem, means really Hashem's glory. They replaced Hashem's glory with the image of an ox eating grass. There's nothing more disgusting than an ox eating grass.
Is this from the Tehillim?
Ad Kan L'Shoyim Medrash.
It doesn't say Tehillim.
It doesn't say it, but this pasuk is from Tehillim. Yeah. So now, V'yeinu Muvan. He says the Medrash. There's many kashas here. And he's going to ask 5 kashas in the Hemshech. We'll summarize afterwards, but this is the first one. L'choyer Masha Mekasher Elu Hashnei Inyanim. What is the Medrash connecting the praise that they said on Kriyas Yamsuf and on Yetzias Mitzrayim on the Geula with the praise that they said on the substitute, which is the golden calf? According to what we're saying, it's going on the Chet HaEgel, that it says that they substituted his glory for an ox eating grass, right? So it's going on the Egel. The entire Egel was an Aveira. There's no praise to Hashem in the Egel. It was Avodah Zarah. Why is that included in the praising of Hashem? Just like in the first half, where it goes on praising Hashem for the Geula from Mitzrayim. Okay, that's kasha number 1. And the teretz is going to be that it wasn't praise of the egel. The egel itself wasn't an avodah zarah. The egel was like an emtsai, like a medium in order stay in contact with Hashem. So he's going to say, based on the Ramban, that they were praising Hashem. When they said, Eilo Elohecha Yisrael Asher Halucha Meretz Mitzrayim, they didn't mean the Egel, they mean Hashem. They meant Hashem. So all this is going to be a mashal for Tzionis in the Hemshech. It takes the Rebbe a long time to get to the Nimshal, but you understand that what he's saying here is all a mashal. So the Egel is obviously the Zionist state, and when they praise, people think after the 6 Day War, when they praise Hashem for the miracles that supposedly happened, they're praising Hashem. They think this is a way to be Mekalis Hashem, but really they're saying praise over the Temurah, the thing that's a substitute for Hashem. Okay. Second,
but it could also,
it's an important point you're saying. It was just like that Moshe Rabbeinu was gone. And the Rebbe is going to say in the Hemshech, the Egel was the substitute for Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe was not Hashem, he was a leader, he was a person, right? They didn't leave Hashem, they just left behind him as a leader, and instead they took the Egel, right? So the same thing is with Zionism, they left behind the idea of Geula and Mashiach and all the promises in the Torah, and instead they substituted that with Medina. Alright, second kasha now. Gam einu muvan haloshen she'achar she'omar she'ayu mekalsim al haGeula siyem v'achshav al HaTemurah. The loshen v'achshav is going to be his problem here, right? It says v'achshav. Now they praise for the Temurah. She'mavur bazeh she'achshav hu kain she'mekalsim al chet ho'egel. Today, people praise Hashem for the sin of the golden calf. So the kash is haloi ho'egel asher kvar nase kol oivdim loy mesu b'shalosh misos. All those people who actually worshipped the egel died already a long time ago in the 3 misos. Kamash kasev Rashi zal shal malakasev vayashkes b'nei Yisrael. Pasuk in Parshas Kisisa that we just learned today. Rashi says that he says shalosh misos nidoinu sham. They were punished with 3 different misos. Im yesh edim vasra, somebody who served the egel with witnesses and warnings, then b'sayef, he got killed by the sword. Kamishpat anshe ir nidachas, shehein merubim. And edim below yasra, if he did it with edim, but he didn't have a warning, so he can't get killed, so b'magefa, then Hashem sent min hashamayim a plague to kill them. Shenemar vayigoif Hashem esa'am. Loy edim below yasra, let's say it was the lowest level, he didn't have edim and he didn't have asra. Then bihidroikon. Then they got some kind of a stomach disease. Shabadkum hamayim v'tzavu bitneim. That Moshe Rabbeinu put the water, he mixed the gold of the egel into the water and gave it to them, and that was like the soita. Just like a soita drinks the water, and then if she's guilty, she dies. So Moshe gave all the yidden to drink from this water with the egel zav mixed into it, and if they were guilty, then they died. So those are the 3 deaths that he died. So everyone who did the egel died. There's no one being Mekalis Hashem on the egel anymore. So what is the Medrash saying? V'achshav, and now today, al HaTemurah. Yeah? V'al shar ha'am shahaya pagam hein al yidei machshava oy al yidei eze siyua. Maybe you're going to tell me the rest of the people, besides those guilty people that died, there were other people too, right? Those people, what was their sin? They didn't actually worship the egel zav, but they had a machshava. At least they thought that they maybe there's something to it. Or maybe they helped out a little bit to make it. They gave their rings, right? Or they didn't protest enough. Kamashon Muzal. Kasher higi lahem Moshe Rabbeinu all of a shalom es goydel pagam. Oh, so he says no, you can't say it's those people because when Moshe Rabbeinu told them the sin that they committed, hey dakasiv sham vayishma ha'am vayisabalu. It says that they were crying about it, they were sad about it. V'lo yishastu ish ed yoelav. They took off their jewelry. From then until today, it says that Vayigoif Hashem Esa'am, it says, I think Rashi says, that every punishment that comes upon Uviyoim Pakti, that's the pasuk. Uviyoim Pakti ufakadati aleim chatasam. In the day when I visit them, I'll visit their sin upon them. It means that in the future, every aveira, every punishment that comes on Klal Yisrael in the future has a little bit of the Ma'aseh Ha'egel mixed into it. So comes out that until today we're being mitzvah over this sin, and we're saying we're doing tshuva for it. So Ibazoi Ad Yar Hashem Ruach Mimar Ma'idei Mashiach Tzidkeinu V'Yistukon Hakol. The Aveir will never be rectified until Mashiach comes. So therefore, since we're sad about it now and we're doing tshuva, how could it be that we're praising today for the egel? Right? The time the Medrash was written was the time of Chazal. There was no one praising Hashem for the egel then. So what's the lashon of achshav?
What's kilus?
Kilus is praise.
Praise.
Okay. Yeah. Next paragraph now. So that's 2 kashas so far. Gam lashon hakastu vayamiru es kvaydam tzarich biur. The pasuk from Tehillim that the Medrash brings, Tehillim I think Kuf Vav, capital Kuf Vav, vayamiru es kvaydam. They substituted their glory. So question is, the haloi haya hamara zu beikar ho'amuna. It's not that they substituted Hashem's glory, they substituted Hashem himself. They had an ego instead of Hashem. Okay, and that's going to be answered later on because the Ramban and the other Mefarshim say that it wasn't really instead of Hashem. Then he says, Gam einer muvan masha darish b'masha amar shor oichel esev she'em lecha menuval meshukatz meshuna kishor b'shal oichel esev. Why does the Medrash make a big deal out of the fact that the shor was the shor oichel esev? It was eating grass. And there's nothing more disgusting than that. The darish zeh miyatur dekra she'amar oichel esev. The Medrash gets it from the pasuk because the pasuk makes a big deal out of oichel esev. But the question is why? He says u'v'mechilta b'parshas b'shalach u'v'medrash rabba shir shirim v'gam b'shar mekoymis b'medrashim darash bozeh gam drashas acheres. The Medrash in other places makes other drashas from the words shor oichel esev. I looked it up. So in the Mechilta B'Shalach, the drasha is that Rav Papa said, "Vayamiru es kvoidam b'tavni shor oichel esev, shomea ani b'shor shel mala, tamaloymar oichel esev." That it's coming la'afuke the shor shel mala. That you shouldn't think that Klal Yisrael took the pnei shor from the kisei hakavod. The answer is no. It wasn't the shor from the kisei hakavod. It was just a regular shor. In Medrash Shir Shirim, it says Rabbi Yudan. B'shem Rabbi Acha Omer Chartumei Mitzrayim Asu Lehem Kshafim V'Haya Nir Kimratet. I wrote it down beforehand that the Chartumei Mitzrayim, the magicians of Egypt, came out of Mitzrayim with them, and they were able to make with their witchcraft that the Egel Azav should look like it's like trembling and moving a little bit, and that's what made them believe in it. They made it look like it was eating grass. So okay, other drashas. And this drasha about that it was meshukatz, it was disgusting, is also brought. But the problem is that even the since it's a replacement for Hashem, it's avodah zara. What's the difference if it was something that was disgusting, or it was something beautiful? Everything that you substitute for Hashem is like nothing compared to Him. So why is the Aveira any bigger or any smaller? Because they substituted something that was Meshukatz. And the answer is going to be that in the mashal, that this is talking about this idea of Zionism. The point is that the Zionists substituted not for Hashem, they substituted for Mashiach and for the Geula, they substituted their Medina. And now, the religious people, because of the so-called miracles, they're saying praise to Hashem for the Medina. So, that would be one level of Aveira. But then the point is that since the Medina is full of shmad and, terrible gzeiros against Yiddishkeit. So how could anyone think that the Aveira of Yidden who believe in it becomes bigger because of that? I mean, if it would just be a regular kvira, okay, that's one level. But since it's meshukatzum, it's manuval, like a shor oichel esev, it has something meshukatz about it, so every Yid should feel that feeling and should realize that there must be something wrong with it. So that was the taina.
This was for the religious Zionists, or the
sefer is basically aimed at anybody who is religious,
like
anybody who exploits the miracles of the Zionist wars to make a movement out of it, to make Bali Tshuva, to bring people to Eretz Yisrael, make new yeshivas, make all this interest in it. It's still being used today, by the way. All the books for Baal HaTemurah, they're still written with this.
Right.
It's still going on. So that's what this is against. Okay, and question number 5. Gam einu muvan kivan she'oegel nasa al yidei hasatan kohen ramzal hitzliach ma'aseh satan. The Chazal say, and it's a Gemara, really a Gemara in Shabbos Peites. Gemara says that the Satan made the whole matzav. He made it look like Moshe Rabbeinu was dead in Shemaim, and they thought he's not coming back anymore. So the Satan was behind it. And also there's a Rashi on the pasuk Vayar Aaron. It says Vayar Aaron Vayiven Mizbeach Lefanav. So Rashi says Shahaya Boy Ruach Chaim. Aaron saw that the egel had life to it. Shenemar Kistav Nishor Oichel Esav. He saw that the Satan's actions had succeeded. So Aaron couldn't completely stop the Jews from doing the egel. So he stalled for time. He said, Chag Lashem Vachar. Tomorrow is a holiday for Hashem, so don't do it today. Wait till tomorrow. He was hoping that in the meantime, Moshe Rabbeinu would come back. Yeah. So since the ego is made by the Satan, so the Rebbe asked like this: Lama asah Satan besavnis meguna kazeh. If it's so disgusting to have a shore eating grass, so why did the Satan pick that for his avodah zarah? He could have made it more beautiful than that. The Satan he's trying to make them be nichshel, so he could have done anything he wants. It seems that Chazal are saying here a mashal. We have to understand the mashal. So far, just to summarize, 5 kashas the Rebbe asked. First of all, what does it mean that they're mekalsim al Temurah? They're mekalsim, it's mashma, they're mekalsim Hashem on the Temurah. The ego is a substitute for Hashem. Second kasha is lashon achshav. What's achshav? Today, nobody's praising the ego today. And third of all, it says vayamir is kvoidam. They substituted his glory. It should have said they substituted him. They substituted Hashem with the ego. And fourth, what's the difference if it was meshukatz or it was beautiful? Who cares? Either way, it's a substitute for Hashem. And number 5 is lama. Why taka did the Satan make the ego in an oifen of meshukatz and menuval? He should have made it beautiful. Okay, turn the page. So the answer to all these questions was that the Rishonim write on the commentaries on Chumash that the Yidden didn't have in mind avodah zarah. That they wanted a leader to replace Moshe Rabbeinu. Zulas meo Erev Rav, except for the Erev Rav, which was the Gerim from Mitzrayim. There were a few people who actually believed in the ego. Those people died. Those were killed by the 3 methods of killing. The rest of Klal Yisrael, when they went along with it, they didn't go along with it because they actually believed that it was avodah zarah. They just went along with it because they thought they needed a new Moshe Rabbeinu, basically. The Kafal Zeh Haramban Zal, based Pa'amim. The Ramban writes this twice already in his commentary. The Kosav Tchila b'Pasuk Asher Yelchu Lefanenu. The very first pasuk in the Egel story, Lama based Pasuk Aleph. The Ramban says Asher Yelchu Lefanenu. Aseilanu Elohim Asher Yelchu Lefanenu. Make us a God that will go before us. Shezeh Mafteach Ladas Inyan Ho'egel. He says this pasuk is the key to understanding the whole story of the Egel. Umachsheves Oisav, and the plan of those who made it. They didn't believe in Moshe being a god. It says that Moshe Ho'ish, this Moshe who is the man who led us out of Mitzrayim is no longer here. So make an egel. They didn't say because to replace Hashem make an egel. They said replace Moshe. The Ramban says that's how it happened. As soon as they saw Moshe did come back in the end, they immediately abandoned the egel, and they actually rejected it. They actually allowed Moshe Rabbeinu to burn the egel, release the rice off roy, and to put its dust into the water. And none of them tried to stop him from doing that. V'ilu haya lahem le'elohim. If the egel was their god, ein derech she'aniach adam malkoi ve'elahav l'streifas eish. Nobody's going to let someone burn their god in fire. If you burn someone's getchka in front of their eyes, they're not going to stone you. Of course, they're going to try to stop you. Why didn't they try to stop him? Obviously, because the egel was not a god. The egel was a replacement for Moshe. The interesting Ramban. The Ramban says on the pasuk l'shimtza b'kameim. You know, when Aaron, when Moshe came to Aaron and said, "How did this happen? Right? Why did you make an egel?" So Aaron said the story about what happened, that they asked him, and then right after that, and by the way, the Ramban brings the raya from that too, because what's Moshe's question? His question to Aaron is, how could you do such a terrible thing, right? So Aaron answered, they said, "Aseh lo Elohim asher yelchel kizeh Moshe ho'ish." So what's Aaron's answer? How is he making the sin any less? So Ramban says, because he's saying, go for this. He's saying the egel wasn't a replacement for Hashem. The egel was a replacement for you, because they thought you were gone. Mela wasn't such a terrible thing. Anyway, so Moshe said, Vayar Moshe so'am kifra ruahu. He saw that they were wild. Kifra Aaron l'shimtza b'kamehem, because Aaron made them wild as l'shimtza, as an insult in those who rise up. So what's an insult in those who rise up? What's the pshat in those words? So Zakh the Ramban, the af shechashvuhu l'toiva, even though they had in mind good things for the egel, mikomakom nitzmach mizeh ra l'doires. It will cause something bad for future generations. They're going to learn to do an egel and make an egel with different thoughts. So he doesn't bring the whole Ramban, but I copied over here the Ramban. So here's the Lashon Ramban. Ki ha'egel asher asu yiyes shemitz ra b'doros Yisrael. This egel will be some kind of a bad thing that's passed down to the future generations. Ki yoimru lo lechinam asu avoseinu eso egel v'yavduhu. People, Jews in the future generations will say, when they read the story, they'll say, it's not for nothing that the Jews in the Midbar made an egel. Rak sheyadu boy kihu asher hela me'eretz Mitzrayim. They must have known that the egel brought them out of Egypt. Umatzu ba'avodasei toyelas lahem. They must have thought that the serving of the egel was useful to them. V'afa nachnu nasakein. Ki toiv lanu lavdei. And therefore we will also do so. Kasher haya hadavar b'Yeravam. And this taka happened in the time of Yeravam ben Nevat. That was the first thing he did after he separated the Aseres HaShvatim. Sh'amar rav lachem me'alois Yerushalayim. He said, enough to go up aliyah l'regel to Yerushalayim. Hinei al hechel Yisrael asher alucha me'eretz Mitzrayim. He said, no, this egel is what brought you out of Mitzrayim. Ra Moshe, so the Ramban concludes, Moshe saw with his nevuah, ki l'doires yifshu uvay, that in the future generations they will do this sin again. Okay? So, what's interesting here is the Ramban is saying that he's saying kind of a nevuah. He's saying, look, the future will be that Jews will go back and they'll read the Torah and they'll say, you know what, the egel must have been really something. Even though right now you're not intending it for that, but right later on there are going to be some archaeologists or whatever Bible critics who will say, you know what, the egel was the original thing, and the Avodas Hashem came later. Right? If you have such a thing in the Torah, people are going to say that. And what's interesting is the Zionists did the exact same thing. What they said is that Klal Yisrael, really we know Klal Yisrael started in the Midbar, my Matan Torah. Ein umazu umu ela b'torasai, beside you going. But the Zionists they turned everything upside down. They said Be'eretz Yisrael kam ha'Yehudi. In the Declaration of Independence, they say in Eretz Yisrael the Jewish people arose, and there they wrote the Bible. Meaning, basically, Jews came first. Jews came first as a people, a land, and a language, and the culture of Jews, and that's first. That's Zionism, that's first. Mm-hmm. Later on, okay, they wrote the Bible and whatever, but that's later on. But the etzem, definition of a Jew is a people and a land and whatever, right? That's exactly what the Zionists did. So this is similar to this idea of the egel. Basically, you're taking something that was done in the past, and you're making it into the Iker, whether instead of being the Aveira. There were people in Judaism in the past who led movements. There were the Biryonim, there were people who fought and made a whole thing out of militancy and fighting and armies. There were people like that, it's true. But the Zionists took those people and made them the Iker, and the
they even started an organization called the Brit Biryonim.
Yeah?
Achimai, yeah, that's famous.
Right.
Jabotinsky called them my boys. Brit Biryonim.
Yep. Okay, so back to the Sefer. The Kosovo Ilacher ala Kosov. The Ramban also writes, Eila Elohech Yisrael, Shagam Zeh HaKosov Yoyer Oischot. This pasuk also shows you that it's not real avodah zarah. Ki ein tipish ba'olam sheyachshav ki hazav hazeh. That no one's going to think that this gold asher ha'y b'El's name that used to be their earrings, hu asher ha'ytziam mitzrayim. That's the thing that brought them out of Mitzrayim. So what's pshat then? Aval amru ki koyach hatzura hazois he'olam misham. The power of the tzura of the egel, not the egel itself, brought them out of there. They believed in Hashem. They believed Hashem was the one, but they wanted this to be their leader that brought them out with Hashem like Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the Ramban. Hinei. We see that he's taking this pasuk that this is one of the kashas that the Rebbe asked before. Why is it kvoidam? Why is it not Hashem atzmoi? So the Ramban is explaining the pasuk. They didn't replace Hashem. They replaced the kavod of Hashem. They said they believed that they were giving kavod to Hashem by praising him for the egel. When they said you have to read Elo Elokecha, it's Kodesh. I mean, they're talking to Hashem. They say, this is Hashem who brought us out of Mitzrayim, and this is His kavod. So this is starting to sound familiar, right? This is the Sionim praising for the Medina, and they're saying, look, this Medina was created by Hashem Yisbarach. Since it was mixed in with this praise for the actual egel, so nischalef hakavod shenasnu laHashem Yisbarach lekavod shel egel azav. The kavod that they were giving to Hashem was given to the egel azav instead. Shalom di mizeh. Why? What's wrong with that? Shalom di mizeh, because they learn out from this. People learn from the future generations. La sois egel avodah zarah, to make an actual avodah zarah. That's why it says kvoidam, it doesn't say atzmoim. Okay, so that's the Ramban. The ayin be'or chaim hakadosh shekasav she'iyav shel lador dea rabim v'nichbadim. It can't be that this generation of the Yotzei Mitzrayim, the Dor Dea, it can't be loymar ladoimim. They can't say to a piece of gold, Eila Elohecha. They couldn't believe that this is the thing that brought them out of Mitzrayim. But by saying this, they showed that they meant, like the Ramban says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yun Sham Sheherich. That's the same as the Ramban. And even in the case of Yeravam, who made golden calves, 6 lines up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up from the bottom. Gamba agolim shasi Yeravam kasever adaksal malachim malaf yudbeis pasuk lamed shebat chila amar Yeravam sheois hoisam l'shem Hashem. That when Yeravam made these golden calves, he said, "I'm making them for Hashem." V'achar kach shav hadavar lechatas, and later on it became an aveira of real avodah zarah. But at the beginning, it wasn't real avodah zarah. U'in sham. Uv'shach HaTemurah. Shach HaTemurah is a sefer by Mordechai HaKohen from Tzfas. Not the Shach on Yordea, but a different person. Mordechai HaKohen from Tzfas. He was a Talmud of the Beis Yosef, and he wrote a Pirush on the Torah. So it's called Sifsei Kohen. So it's Shach, but it's not the same as the Shach. Okay, uv'shach HaTemurah parshas Tisa kasav oid b'masha amru asher halucha me'eretz Mitzrayim v'lo amru asher hoitziacha. He's medayik the word that they said. These are the gods that brought you up out of Egypt. Up. Ha'elucha, right? So why doesn't it say hoitziacha, that they brought you out? Ki be'emes amru zeh eirvav. He learns pshat that who is saying these words, Eila Lehecha? The Eirvav was saying it, the Mitzrayim who came out with them. Why did they say it? Lahachti es Yisrael, to make the Yidden stumble in this Aveira. Ve'ilu hayu aimrim hoitziacha. So they knew they couldn't lie too much. They couldn't say a direct sheker and say hoitziacha. Then they would have known it's not true. The Egel didn't bring them out of Mitzrayim. No one would listen to them. Nobody could deny the nisim that they saw by Yitzis Mitzrayim, that it wasn't this Egel. Okay. So rather, what did they say? Asher ha'elucha. They brought them up. Shehu lashon manig, meaning it didn't do the actual hoitzah. It didn't defeat Parai with miracles, but it brought them up with like a manig, kanis kolel, same as the pshat of the Ramban. V'achar kach sheyatza egel, when later on the egel came out, mevur b'pirkei Rebbe Lezer perak mem hey, v'hevio Rabbeinu B'chaya, Rabbeinu Bachya actually v'uv'shach sham the shach al-Torah shenichnas hasamach mem b'soicho egel, that when the egel was actually made, then the Samach Mem came into the Egel the haGuela, and it was making noise. It was like mooing, right? Lahato says Israel, to make the Yidden confused and think that it was real. V'chein hu b'targum yonasan perak lamed beis pasuk yotesh shekostav v'zel shonai v'sitna hava begavei. The Satan was inside the Egel metapes u'meshavar kadam ama. It was dancing and jumping in front of the people. I was just thinking, when you read this Shach al Torah, the Shach says that it was Ha'elucha, not Hoitziacha. Yeah, it's interesting. The remez, we're talking about Zionism here, so it's interesting remez to today's times when the Medina people say Asher Ha'elucha me'eretz Mitzrayim. They made the defeat and made the state of Israel defeat Egypt in the war. Interesting remez to what's going on now. What went on in '67. So now we're on page Hey at the top. The first paragraph.
Samach Mem, that just means, what does it stand for? I don't know, it means Yitzhahara.
Yeah, it's short for the Satan's name. Samach Mem Aleph Lamed. Okay. According to what the Ramban says, that the Yidden didn't have in mind on the Egel itself, El Lamanig, they only had in mind that it should be a leader, not an actual replacement for Hashem. So Yan shechashvu shemeis Moshe, because they thought that Moshe died. V'chashvu alav l'manig achar mises Moshe, they thought it would take over from Moshe. V'imkein yetzias Mitzrayim shekvar haya b'mei Moshe ein l'manig haba acharav chelik bazeh. So it's still shver. Why did they think that the Egel brought them out of Mitzrayim, even not as a god, even as a leader? But Moshe Rabbeinu was the leader who brought them out of Mitzrayim. How could they think that the Egel was the leader that brought them out of Mitzrayim? Right? According to what I brought from the Shach, that really it wasn't the Yidden that said this. The Yidden would never say such a blatant lie. It was the Eirvav. And they said it Lahato says Yisrael, to confuse the Jews. And the Samach Mem also went into the Egel and made it look like it was real. When they were praising this Egel that had the Samach Mem, they also wanted to bring in Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Eirvav wanted to. The Eirvav were interested in bad things. They wanted to bring the Avodah Zarah into Klal Yisrael. So they tried to bring in Yetzias Mitzrayim too. Sheyachshavu Yisrael she'al yidei manig zeh shel Egel Azav, they'll think that by praising this new leader, Yizkru Yoister Shvachai Shel Kodesh Baruch Hu B'Yetzias Mitzrayim. They'll remember more, and they'll be more praising Hashem with Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the same thing is the mashal for the Zionists, right? Even though the Zionists weren't around by Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the Torah was around thousands of years before them, but still some people somehow think that by the nisim of the Milchama, they can make Baalei Tshuva, right? With all the books that are out there, and Esha Torah and everything, a lot of it has to do with this whole idea of
books. What is it?
What?
Books.
The books. The books about to make Baalei Tshuva. A lot of them mention the 6-day war.
Shabbat Tzvim also made Baalei Tshuvas.
Yeah, the Rebbe speaks about it later. We'll see. Okay, so Yitzias Mitzrayim Yizkru Yosef.
I think Naphtali Bennett, even his parents became from because of the 6 Day War. His parents about tshuva.
Oh, I didn't know that.
His parents were secular Jews. They became about tshuva.
Okay. So Yizkru Yosef. Remember the praise of Hashem. Yitzias Mitzrayim with Nisav and Yifal Oisav. Yisbarach Shemai. The Erev Rav realized that by doing this, they're going to convince more Jews to join in the Egel. That's taka what happened.
His parents are American.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know. Okay, so I guess we're getting the fruits now of the Vaal HaTemurah of the 6 Day War.
That's right. I think they're from San Francisco.
So he says this is what happened until all the people joined the Egel. Ad Shabbat Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Hashem who bit like after the Aaron. He completely nullified it like dust. Yeah. Interesting in the Psicha by Rabbi Yosef Ashkenazi, he brings down a story that someone came in and told the rebbe. Let's see if I can find it here. That people were comparing this to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Here it is on page Tes in the Psicha. It says. Someone told the Rebbe, "Shemefarsimei anisim oimrim she'af b'yetzias Mitzrayim lo haya nisim ko'elu." After Lepumayu, that they thought that even in Yetzias Mitzrayim's times there weren't nisim like the 6 Day War nisim. So Rabbeinu, the Rebbe got up from his chair, and he yelled out, "Va'ani oimer shemiyoyim shenivra oilam lo haya aslan l'klal Yisrael kamoya medinat Zionis." That from the Brias Olam, from the creation until now, there's never been a greater misfortune than the Zionist state. And he says, if they won the war, even though I know that everything happened.
So is this?
Paragraph starting Agav. So Gam Bara Etlisha Satan Amar Lahem Le'ezer Sheyinatzchu. The Satan helped them win. Meaning it's not a nace because they were more powerful than the Arab armies, but it still it took them quicker. It could have happened. It could have taken longer. There could have been more casualties. The Satan helped them to win the war quickly. Uviyoim Beis the Shvuas the Emsa Amir Satoira Besudas Hayoim. On the second day of Shavuos, in the middle of the Torah that he was saying, he said, those who compare the war, miracles of the war to Yetzias Mitzrayim, that they should be put into Cherem with 1,000 shofars. Yeah, so this is sort of what he's being meramis to here, that somehow the Erev Rav made people think, the Zionists made people think that praising their Nisim is going to help them praise more the Nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Okay. We see now the answer to the first kasha that the Rebbe started out with on the first page. That they thought by praising the Egel, they're praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'Yetzias Mitzrayim. But since that praise was over something that was a substitute, it was a praise over the substitute, which was the Egel. We'll move on. That we understand the Medrash. In the past they were praising for the Geula. Vaal HaTemurah. Hakilu is Gufa, the same exact praise. It's not praised for the Egel, praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's Vaal HaTemurah, but it's coming over something that's a substitute. Like substituted his glory. Woe to that embarrassment of doing such a terrible affair. So he finished answering the 5 kashas that were on the first page. Right? The praise was to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is the first kasha. The Lashon v'achshav he didn't get to yet. We'll have to answer that in the next page. And then Vayamir is Kvoidam, the Kavod, he explained with the Ramban, and then the questions 4 and 5 he did not answer yet about the Meshukatz and Menuva. We'll have to get to that. All right. V'hinei b'man she'omar vayalu oilos vayagishu shlamim. This that it says they brought korbanos to the Egel. Kosav gamkin Ramban zal sham. The loy kosav vayalu loy oilos. It doesn't say they brought the korbanos to the Egel, to it. Vayagishu loy shlamim. Ki amchavnim l'shem Hashem gam hoilos v'ashlamim heviu l'shem Hashem. Those who had in mind Hashem, they brought the korbanos to Hashem. Only the people that really believed in the egel were the ones who brought it for the egel. And then it says they got up to make light, make jokes. So Kapirish Rashi Zal Gilui Arais Hushar Averis. He says it doesn't mean jokes. It means they actually got up to do immorality, another Averis. Rahman Litzlan. Because Kishazavchuloi Vihishtachavuloy Nisgalak Avoinam B'maisa. Now, when they got up and they actually brought the korbanos to the egel, those few people that did, it was Nisgal. It was proven that they were really not good. Before that, they were just thinking about it, but now they actually did it. And that was the main reason for Hashem's anger. Though now that the rest of Klal Yisrael saw the disgusting things that these Avodah Zarah who did through the egel, why didn't they realize that they have to reject it? Even without Moshe Rabbeinu coming. That was the time on them. Okay? So that's the mashal for Zionism in the war, that people who praise Hashem for the victory of the Zionists, they should realize that the Zionists represent a lot of bad things. So even if you don't understand Vayol Moshe, you don't understand the Shalosh Shavuos, and forget about waiting for Mashiach and all that, but if you realize how bad the Zionists are and how much hezek they're doing to Klal Yisrael, then you shouldn't be praising the results of a victory that they had. Okay. Now we understand why they darshan the pasuk that the ox was eating grass. There's nothing more disgusting than an ox eating grass. So what it means is not the egel itself. Even forget about Zionism. In the egel story, it wasn't meant to say that it was disgusting that the egel ate the grass. What was disgusting was that the people worshipping the egel did things that were disgusting. That he saw what bad things this statue caused. They still substituted Hashem's covenant for this. That even despite the fact that it was pretty obvious that it was bad, the Samach Mem had a power to cause them to stumble. Okay, page above. The cost of Achiskuni al Torah, Parshas Tisa al Kostuv Elo Lahecha Yisrael, Vizel Hashoinai. The Chizkuni writes, it's a Rishon, V'chishoitim Hayu, Oimar Ki Egel Zed Shenasa Hayoim Mizav Hoitzim Mitzrayim. Were they fools to think that this Egel brought them out of Mitzrayim? El Matzinu, Sheyesh Bahem Ruach Tumah, that the Egel had in it Ruach Tumah, V'hem Savru Shahaya By Ruach Tahar, but they mistook it for a tahar, for a good ruach. It was a test that Hashem made for them. He made it the power and the ruach tumah that was on this egel. We find by the false navi, the navi of Avodah Zarah, that sometimes he could make a moifis, right? It really happens. And why? Because Hashem's testing you. These are the words of the Chizkuni.
I mean that Navi part of the Zohar could do miracles.
The what?
I mean that a Navi Sheker is able to do miracles.
Yeah, that's what that pasuk is talking about. The Chizkuni is telling it to the Egel, and he's saying, yeah, the Egel also had some kind of a Ruach Tumah on it, which made them think that it was real. The Egel was actually a test. That it made them think that the Ruach Tumah was really Ruach Tara. They made it a miracle, they made them think that way. Even though it's against common sense, no one would think such a thing, that Yitzis Mitzrayim has any shaykhs to the Egel, but because of the amazing koyach that it had, the moifis that it had in it, people thought that. So he's just showing that it's possible that people could be confused by a miracle and think that something that's totally against their own seichel. And this is interesting because look in the Psicha by Rabbi Yosef Ashkenazi, you see one of the first letters that the Rebbe received from the Toldos Aaron Rebbe, the first page of the Psicha. At the bottom, he says, "Ve'oikar masher ritzoni lichtov she'ein l'shayir goydel hatimyon ve'abilbol shenasu achshav b'rechoyev mihatzlachas hatzionim." That you can't imagine what kind of a bilbul, what kind of a confusion there is in the street because of the victory. Much bigger than the confusion that existed by the war in 1956, Sinai campaign. They're dancing, and they're clapping their hands, they're smechim, even in many yeshivas they're doing this. Besides, more than the fact that the Zionists conquered the West Bank and whatever they conquered, the biggest problem is they conquered the hearts of the Charedim, hein be'eretz Yisrael v'hein b'chutz la'aretz. It's almost impossible to speak to people in the street. That's one letter. There's another letter that he brings in page Tes, bottom. He brings another letter in the Psicha still. He brings a letter written by, he doesn't say who, he says Me'echad mi'gedoylei Yerushalayim. One of the great people in Yerushalayim wrote to him like this. He says, V'ato einei kol Yisrael ha'ma'aminim Baruch Hashem tzoyfois el kvoy kedushas admor shlita la'azor l'chazik oisanu min zol nish bleiben and ganzen verfallen. He says that everyone's hoping that the Rebbe will set everybody straight and be Megala, the true Das Torah on the war. You can't even bear to tolerate these nisyonis. You can't imagine that the test of the Egel was a bigger test than the test of today. He says the Egel only lasted one day. After all, it was a terrible thing, but the whole thing took basically one day, right? And it was right after Kabbalah Torah, Torah Shel Moshe ve'Aaron, and we had leaders who came down and taught us the right way. How could we compare that to today's generation, which is low, which is very, very impoverished? There's no one else besides the Satmar Rebbe who could go and be mechazik, be emunah. So he says, even if there is someone who wants to speak out and print something against the Zionists, he'll be completely made fun of and despised by the people. Everyone's relying on the Satmar Rebbe. He'll blow new life into us. It would be advisable for the Rebbe to print maybe a small booklet to give us chizuk. I'm not saying my opinion. So this Gadol was one of the ones who gave the Rebbe the idea to write the.
But he doesn't say the name. You don't know.
He doesn't say his name. No. So anyway, I wanted to show you that he mentions the Egel here, and he says it's impossible to imagine that the Nisayan of the Egel was a bigger Nisayan. So this is what he's saying here, that the Egel was, according to the Chizkuni, the Egel was a real Nisayan, that they thought that it had Ruach Chaim, it had Ruach Tahara in it, and really it was a Ruach Tumah. Another point I wanted to say is that if you in today's Haftorah about Eliyahu Navi, which you learn only in the Ibrayar, on Kisisa, Eliyahu Navi in Har Carmel, that he made a nest, fire came down from Shemayim, and everyone believed in Hashem, and said Hashem Hu Elokim, and they dropped their Baal worship, and they killed the Nevi'ah Baal. So you see an interesting thing. You see that when someone's failing in their emunah, it's possible to show them an ois and a moifis to get them back on the derech, like Eliyahu did. He showed them a fire. Mashenkin, the other way around, you don't say. If you're a yid, a mamin, you know what the Torah says, and all of a sudden a navi sheker comes with an ois and moifis, you don't go after that. Lois tishmal divrei navi yahu. So why does it work that way? Why are we like one-sided? Why do we only listen to an ois and moifis if it's on the Torah side, but if it's on the kfir side, you don't listen to it? So the answer is pashut, because people who are kaifrim, or people who are oivdei Baal, like in the time of Eliyahu, they didn't have a Messiah going back that the Baal gave a Torah, Har Sinai, and whatever. They didn't know that it was emes. They just thought that this is what they wanted to do. It was their seichel that made it up, or whatever, or somebody else's seichel. But they got into it because of the peer pressure. But they didn't have a real reason to believe in it. So therefore, when a sheker, when something like that is standing on sheker, if an ois and moifis comes around, they'll be woken up and they'll say Hashem hu Elokim. Hashem can yid, a mamin who knows that the emunah is true, he's not going to be affected by a false ois and moifis coming from the tumah. All right. Next paragraph. Ulataritz mashi ikshinu. According to answer up what we asked in the first page, question number 2, we asked that why does it say now we say praise for the Temurah? Now we say praise. What's now? It's not now, right? The kivin dekai alo egel haloi b'shah shenichtav mikra zeh. When the pasuk was written, which is in Rus, and Kol Sheken, when the Medrash was written, it was many years after the story. The offer, the egel was totally gone. It was dust. There's no praise for it anymore. What's the now? The Chazal came to make a remez here. Just like back then, there was a terrible a mistake in Temurah, a substitution with the Chet HaEgel. Kain hu gam achshav. It could happen again today. She'alu li yois kain. It could happen today also. Koyach hasamach mem v'asitra achar delay b'kam adoyers. The koyach of the samach mem could also exist in future generations. That this happened to us in a tremendous amount. More and more. But Dor HaShafel Ikva de Mashiach b'mida gedusha Rahman v'tzlan. That this happened in our low generation, in the times before Mashiach comes, in a large measure. Sheba hasamach mem v'gira.
Gedusha is big.
Gedusha is like a heaping cup. Rahman v'tzlan. Sheba hasamach mem v'gira delay. The samach mem and his arrows, which could be a remiss to the Zionists with their weapons. But and it comes with tremendous trials and tests. Because Rebbe writes in Vaal HaTemurah that when more in Sanhedrin, Tzaddik Ches says, right, that Ein ben David ba ad sheyich l'malchus azal Yisrael. The Mashiach's not going to come until Zionist state is gone. So the Samach Mem sees that when Mashiach comes, right, he's going to be shechted. He doesn't want that to happen, so he's trying his hardest to keep the Zionist state afloat. And one of the ways to keep it afloat is to have a war like this with so-called nisim that will attract people to it. And as you see, what happened after the '67 war, there was a settler movement. There was a yeshiva movement coming to Eretz Yisrael. All these kind of things happened as a result of that war. So that's what the Samach Mem was trying to do here. He says, to prevent the Gula from coming through these Averis. He's coming with cleverness. He's coming with a disguise of miracles and of saving people's lives. blind the eyes of Bnei Yisrael, l'chazek koyach hatzionim v'hakoyfrim, and to strengthen the Zionists and the heretics. Haboim lakor es kol haTorah kula, who are coming to uproot the whole Torah. Asher me'olam lo niyasa kamoyhem. There's no heretics like these that ever existed. Sheyoimru didan natzach b'atzalos Yisrael. There's no heretical movement that ever happened that actually succeeded and could say, yeah, we could brag that they saved Jewish lives. And by doing so, lahato isal yidei af levavos shomerei Torah mitzvahs, and to pull over to their side and confuse even those who are shomerei Torah mitzvahs. Lios nimshach machreim chas v'shalom, to go after them. Shoymu shemayim al zois. The heavens should be shocked at this. Lo yu'uman ki yasupar. It can't be believed. It's almost unbelievable. Asher eza shomer Torah mitzvahs mishahu yamim l'divrei shigaron ka'elu. That any shomer Torah mitzvahs could believe such craziness. Asher hakoifrim shehisisu v'hedichu rov Yisrael mihu amunah. These kaifrim who led most of Klal Yisrael away from the amunah, they have a state there with 80% of them being not religious, and they have these schools and everything, and they're teaching kfira. And the Hirbu, and they, Hirbu Shmadias B'Yisrael, they brought immigrants in from other countries and they put them through camps and taught them to be kaifrim. Adein Shir V'Erech. Gam Paul U'Maseim Harbegois U'Shvichas Damim Shal Yisrael. They also caused the death of many Jews. Shal Harba V'Harba Meos Alafi, many hundreds of thousands. He's talking about, I guess, Hungary, that the Zionists abandoned the Jews of Hungary when the Nazis came. They didn't want to help them. Every day they're adding more and more sins divrei Torah Akdoisha, to uproot the Torah. And all of a sudden now in the 6-day war, Bahem Bachar Hashem la'asos nisim al yadam latzalos Yisrael. Hashem chose these same Zionists to make a nace to save Klal Yisrael. Ein zel divrei shigaron. To believe such a thing is crazy. V'hitu b'nisei Hashem. That's completely like making fun of the real nisim. Uv'torasei akdoisha kasher yisbar oy lahalan, as we're going to explain later. Shebederach hateva lo yuchal shomer Torah mitzvahs lachshev al zeh b'shum oifen. That any Yid who believes in Torah mitzvahs cannot think such a thing. So how could they actually think it? El shasamach mem meval b'las hadas. It's the Samach Mem, just like by the Ego, he's confusing our minds, and he's bringing us from one extreme to the other, b'oifen pili, in an amazing way. Just because the Satan could do some kind of thing that looks like a miracle, and right away people don't understand it, like it was by the war, that right away everyone was saying it was Nisim, right? The Zionists themselves, part of the reason why people think it's Nisim is because the Zionists themselves spread the word around the world before that they're in deep trouble. They wanted America to back them. In the 56 war, Eisenhower didn't back them. Right. That's why they lost out on the whole conquest of the Sinai. So they wanted to not repeat that mistake. So they wanted to make it look really, really bad. So they made it like, yeah, Nasser is like a Hitler, and he's going to come and kill all the Jews and kick them into the sea. And they dug the graves. It says the people they were digging graves before the war to make sure everyone would have a place to be buried. Right? They really believed. They made people believe that they were in danger. And then when they did the war, okay, so now it looks like a nace. So. But internally, obviously, the Israeli generals knew, and the American CIA and everybody knew that it was not miraculous. They knew that the Zionists were much more powerful and well trained, so they didn't. Yeah,
General Mati Pellet, you heard of him?
Yeah. He said that too. He said it was nothing. It was like
Yeah, his son is a peace activist.
Yeah.
Miko Pellet.
Yeah. So anyway,
you met him before?
I spoke to him a few times. I think I actually ended up meeting him. Anyway, so he's saying, so if the Satan is going to do this, so right now, good. People thought it was a miracle. Even Gedolim thought, right? People who heard the news, they didn't really study the politics, so they thought that it was a miracle. Okay, so let's say you think it's a miracle. So if you have the Satan doing an ace and doing something in a way that you don't understand it right away, Right away, looking at it on face value, people can't understand it. So because of that, you're going to think of something that's completely against the Torah? No, you got to keep your mind steady. You got to keep your what do you call it? Keep level-headed. Think the Torah is true. Well, I know about the Torah is true. I have a kasha. I don't understand how this victory happened. Okay, we'll look into it. But don't go and completely what do you call it? Completely overturn all your emunah just because of something you don't understand. Anybody who gives encouragement to Zionists, Soela, who muchash mikol Torah kula, he's going against the whole Torah. They not tzarich laharich b'rayis b'zeh. We don't have to bring more proofs about this. Okay, page 9. Gam be'etzem ha'milchama. Even when it comes to war itself, meaning the army's conduct, not only the Zionists in the absorption camps and what they did to the Sephardim, what they did to this and whatever other people in Yemen, but even in the actual war, that there can't be anything in the machane of the soldiers that's erva. If Hashem sees that, He'll go back and He won't help them. The cost of Ramban, Parashas Tetzei, al cost of Kiseitze Machne Aloivecha, when Yishmartem Mikol Davarad. The Torah says when you go out to war, you have to be careful of all bad thoughts, bad things, aveiros. Besides the fact that bad thoughts is an aveir no matter when, even if you're not in the army, but Yosef Lav b'machne. The Ramban says it's an extra lav on top of that when you're in a war. Shenishmar boy mikol elu aveiros. Shaloi tistalik hashchina Yisrael, so that the Shechina should not stop being with Klal Yisrael. The other Rishonim also say that that in a war, yesh lav noisef al kol aveiros. All the aveiros become doubled. Shaloi tistalik hashchina. There can't be any miracles in the time when the Shechina is not there. On the same pasuk, there's some small averis that Hashem doesn't really punish for them. And if He does punish, it's going to be a small one. But when it comes to a dangerous situation of war, then they have to be more makpid on even the small sins. Anything. The kol al b'tevas davar. They said the word. The Torah says the word davar. Gam sibois. It doesn't just mean the aveir itself, but even a cause, even something that causes aveiros is also bad. Shemimenu yisoy v'varav v'heir bazet b'mash etziva b'samuch ki yiyeh v'cha ish asher lo yiyeh tahar. Like, for example, the Torah says if someone is not tahar because of a mikrei laila, that thinking about thoughts, bad thoughts during the day causes that. The reason why the Torah gives this example is that even though the hirhurei aveira is something that it's not a tremendous aveira, it's not something that Hashem punishes for on a regular basis, but in this case, because it's in a war, that's why the Torah is more makpid on it. So now let's look at the Zionist army, the Tzahal. The Israeli army is made up with boys and girls together. For who erva v'zima she'en kamoisa. It's a place of erva. It's a place of total immorality. B'chol ha'oil and kulai. There's no such army anywhere else in the world. V'noida she'en maleim erva v'zima rachmana litzlan. We know that they're full of erva. Gam maleim minus akvira. They're also full of the denial of the Torah. Ritzicha, the Hafar Sadas, and they're also full of Ritzicha. They kill people, the Hafar Sadas, and they go against Torah. They in the Shire. So Misha.
So they're referring to killing Arabs, right?
I guess so, yeah. Or maybe Ritzicha of Jews when they send them out to unnecessary wars. Like he's going to say that when that these things that are considered nisim by some people, right? So if Zionists are the secular Zionists. The Rebbe has a piece in Vayol Moshe Kuf Lamed Hey. Kuf Lamed Hey. He's talking about the Sinai War. He says if they were really nisim, if the Zionists don't believe in Nisim, right? So they're not firm, right? They don't believe in it. So why would they send out the soldiers to a situation where al derech hateva they're not going to win? They're going to get killed. Yeah. So obviously the Zionists are rotzchim if they really believe that it's a nace. And if they don't believe it's a nace, then why should we believe it's a nace? Yeah. So same thing here. So he says that it's ritzicha. Anyway, anyone who thinks that the Shekhinah is among them, he's denying the honor of the Shekhinah hakdoisha v'chol Torah kula. So it can't be that the Israeli army had a miracle that happened because of the mitzad kedusha, a good miracle, a miracle that's not supposed to be a test. If the attacker would be nisim by the milchama, we would have to say that the samach mem did it. Those emissaries of the samach mem that dwell among a place of tumah like the Israeli army. And the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Daf Nun Hey, that he's going to bring later on, that says that sometimes the Avodah Zarah could actually perform a miracle. They'll shech the person for Avodah Zarah, and then the rain will come. Kasher Yisbar B'Akuntris. Ve'ein shum safek shelo yispayel lev hamarmin b'Hashem Yisbarach Torah HaKadoshah. Af zis kolshu, that a yid who's a marmin and believes in Hashem should not be impressed, even a little bit. Lintois meo emes gam biroisay nisim v'niflois. Even if Yitaka did see nisim from the Zionists. Atzumim niflois atzum hanasim la'avodah zarah. Afim yamid achama ki Yoshua ben Nun. Even if he makes the sun stop. Kanoida. Avokan. But by the 6th day war, be'emes loy haya v'loy nivra, there were no nisim, shaloi haya nisim klal, kasher yisbar b'akuntris b'rayis brurus. Okay. Ubefrat b'kibush...
In these countries?
Yeah, he's going to explain. Ubefrat b'kibush ir hatika, the conquest of the holy, the old city, Yerushalayim, umakam hamikdash, on the Har Bayis, hamaleim achshav, the whole, not the Har Bayis, but the rest of the old city is full. It's full of churches. The whole Christian quarter, Armenian quarter, right? That when you conquer a place, you have to cut down the avodah zarah. It says v'asherehem tegadeim, and this is the Gemara in avodah zarah memhem base. It says that gidua avodah zarah, the cutting of the avodah zarah, comes before the kibush. Shim koiv shim eizem makom beretz Yisrael ve'ein mevarim avodah zarah. Terem HaKibush, if you don't go before you conquer it and destroy the avodah zarah, yesh lo din oiv the avodah zarah mamish. Then you have the same din as if you did avodah zarah. The asay, the abed ta'abdun, who asay the avodah zarah. This is one of the assays that goes into the general mitzvah of destroying or not worshiping avodah zarah. Because of her, like Abizrayu. Because of her, Abizrayu means it's a subsection of the din of avodah zarah. Because of her Chaim HaKadosh, she made mevarim misa avodah zarah. If someone doesn't destroy it, oivrim gamal alav deloi sa'avdem. It's as if he actually worshipped it. It's like you're over on do not worship them. The 10 Commandments. V'u b'chlal yeharg v'al yavor. And it's sin that you have to give your life for. Now, this thing about destroying avodah zarah before you conquer, it's a little hard to understand. But the Rebbe brings this in Vayal Moshe also, by the way, in Simon Tzadik. But really, how could you destroy avodah zarah before you conquer something? If you're not conquering it yet, the goyim are still there. So how could you destroy the avodah zarah? So, by stories, we're talking about outside the cities. In Canaan, they used to have trees and that they made an asher out of, right, and the mizbeachs. They had things that they used for avodah zarah. So to go cut down those before the kibush, they're mechuyev to. Asherehem to gadeyun. The inside of the city, obviously, you can't get to them until you break into the city. Anyway, v'heim loy belvad shaloi mevarim, but the Zionists, not only did they not destroy Esa avodah zarah, el misparim shiachzikum, they actually pride themselves that they're going to support it, be covered, they're going to give it lots of honor.
But they're not allowed to destroy it, right?
Yeah, the UN would be after them. I mean, the whole.
But even halachically, because of girls or something like that.
Oh, so Nichanami, he's saying the shitasam. He's saying Nichanami, the shitasi, you're not allowed to be in control at all. You're in galus. But he's saying the shitasam, that they're conquering it, then they should be destroying avodah zarah. Okay, v'im came. Hein be'oistoy akibush oivdei avodah zarah mamisha. Comes out the Zionists by being kovish Eretz Yisrael, kovish a place that has avodah zarah in it. They're actually being oivdei avodah zarah. Until the 6 Day War, that wasn't really the case because most of Eretz Yisrael is Muslim. So what did they conquer? They didn't conquer any real churches. I guess there were a few. There must have been some, right? But not too much.
Where?
Maybe Jaffa.
Maybe before 67.
Haifa, yeah.
And Nazareth.
But right, Nazareth was before 67 or after?
Before.
Before?
That's in the Galilee.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it could be before, but after they for sure had much more avodah zarah in their boundaries. So now v'ha'ech yale alev. How could it occur to anybody? Alev Adam Shakadosh Baruch Hu asa nisim la'avoid avodah zarah. Kadosh Baruch Hu made a nace for the Zionists to conquer the old city in order that they should do avodah zarah. Ein zel kfir gemura. That's completely kfir. V'yef shalach shevacheres. You can't think otherwise. So why do people think otherwise? El shu koyach hasamach mem v'chayel oisav. Hasamach mem convinces them. Tema ani hafla v'fela ha'echi gia ad k'dei kacha. How could it come to this matzav? Gam laharbe shoymrei Torah mitzvahs. Many from Jews also believe this. B'dor hashafal hazeh. Ubifnim hakuntras. Inside this sefer, yisbar shaloi hayukan klal u'klal nisim. I'll explain that no, there were no nisim. El hatzlacha melubash b'teva. It was a hatzlacha that was clothed in teva. Meaning it happened through Teva. All of Teva is Nisim. All of Teva is Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's not anything that was Yoytze Migidrei HaTeva. It was just something to use, that the Zionists used to blind everybody and make them believe in Zionism. That the Samach Mem was given the power to blind even these frum Jews who meant well and fall into this trap. So in other words, the nace was not the actual victory of the war. The nace was the fact that the Zionists conquered the hearts of Jews and made them believe in their kfir. Let's see if we can do one more paragraph. On the subject of the war and the victory, and saving the people were saved, lives were saved. So yisbayer bepratius bifnim hakuntris davar lafanav that we'll explain it in order where it belongs. Someone who reads through this whole sefer, he'll have some of his doubts straightened out. He says, why do I say only some of this fekus will be explained? Because I can't explain everything. He says we can't cover all the bases here. Only these few lines. In this introduction, I'm only writing the main, like the table of contents. There's much more to it than what's written here. We can't bring everything down. Everything that our heart understands. But the hope is that if you read this sefer, you'll understand it yourself. And now the Rebbe does the same thing he does in the Hakdama to Vayol Moshe, that he says he's writing the sefer only for people who are open-minded to see the truth. He says, I'm not talking to those who are completely won over already to the Zionists. They love the Apikorsim. We're not supposed to love Apikorsim. We're supposed to say that they should have a downfall. He says to talk to people who are already apikorsim, you can't do that. Because Chazal say Dama Shatoshiv. Chazal do say that you should speak to know how to answer apikorsim. So Zok there, no. But in Sanhedrin, I think it's Daf Lamed Zayin, Lamed Tes, somewhere around there, it says no. Hanimili apikoris akum. That only means a non-Jewish apikoris.
You mentioned it in your book. This.
Yeah. If you're going to speak back and argue with an apikoros that's Jewish, then you're going to get him, he's going to become worse because of that. Because a guy doesn't really care that much. He just thinks one way, so if you change his mind, he'll change his mind. He doesn't really have anything invested in it. But a yid who's not apikoros, if you try to argue with him, he's just going to argue more and then think of more answers. He says, I'm not trying to be over on these words of Chazal, he says, I'm also not speaking to people who are like bought out by the Zionists. They're bribed. They're under the influence of the money of the Zionists because they want to get either money, or money, or they want to get some toyelis. They want to get some benefit. Mizeram ha'olam hamishtachvim le'egel azav shalat zionis. They're getting something out of the current trend of everybody running to Israel and being mishtachved, bowing to the golden calf of Zionism. Either they're going to get covered out of it, or they're going to get money out of it, or memshala, or they're going to get more power. Religious parties are getting more power, whatever. People who are bribed by money or honor are not going to be able to see the truth. That the bribe blinds the eye, so there's no point in even talking to a person like that. A blind person can't even see what's in front of him. Even a person, even if he's not motivated by real belief, he's motivated by money, but he'll still constantly try to find more answers to answer back whatever I say. So I'm not talking to people like that either. I'm talking to people who are impartial and they're ready to hear the emes. Okay, I just want to say an interesting thing. We always try to bring in the Zionists also and see what they say. So I just brought the sefer today, haGuela from Kasher. Yeah. So
which one is the one?
I want to show you a funny thing that he writes. Kasher here in the beginning of haGuela, the Hakdama to his sefer. So he says that many people have asked him that nobody wrote a sefer that's pro-Zionist that explains Zionism yet until he comes along. He says, "Rabim Tmeim Shezeh Estrim Shana."
Continue, right? Nothing.
It doesn't sound like it. He says, "Rabim Tmeim." Many people are surprised that it's been 20 years. Mizman Koim HaMedina Lo Yatsa Af Sefer Torani Echad Miyuchad Levar Hashayla Hagdoila Hanal. That no sefer has come out to explain this big question. And in the footnote, he brings that someone named Rabbi Yehuda Nachshoni, the editor of Sha'arim, writes the same thing, and he says like this. He says, I don't know, it's long. I don't want to read the whole thing, but he says, there's a lot of questions about this date. He says, Bisfarim ein remez l'tkumas medinas Yehudim atzmoim lifnei boy haGuela. There's no such mention in the Sfarim about a state coming about, a Jewish state coming about before Mashiach. I wonder why, right? He bought b'hesech hadas. It came when we weren't even thinking. Uvenesivas miyuchadas. It came in interesting ways. V'kana ben shoyel eifo yachkut hamakasher yitzira gedoyel zu l'mekoyers. How can we connect this state back to the mekoyers? Al elu yisoidis ha'ba'alacha v'ashgafa chaya v'kayemis medina zu. How is this Medina based on halacha and hashgafa? It's not. Okay? Minayin hi shoyefes koicha v'atzmasa. How does the Medina get its power? Eizem maimed biyadus toifesis Medina k'mo izeh shalanu. What place in Judaism does this state have? Shenoitzra b'ma'avakim u'shviches dam lifnei boya Mashiach. This state was founded through the bloodshed of Jews and Goyim before the coming of Mashiach. Okay? And he says, Muzar l'tzayin, it's strange to note, Ki miyoyim tekumas ha-medina v'yad hayoyim, from the beginning of the state until now, lo inem rechavus das torasis al-mahusa shal yitzira zu. No Torah opinion was expressed about this. Choyvoseha u'zchuyoseha. It's positive and it's negative. Ha-sefer ha-yachid, the only sefer that did come out, is guess what? Shoifia b'Hilchos Eretz Yisrael shal zmanenu hu sifrei shal admor misatmar shlita hashoyel esatakum, which is against the state. That's the only sefer that came out from 1948 until 1968 when Kasher wrote this thing. Yeah, it's talking in 68. Ula miidach lo shamanu migdol Israel de negdis brewer. We never heard the opposite opinion from any Gedolei Israel from now until from then until now. And Kasher sets out to write his book to answer that question. But it's just funny that nobody until the Rebbe wrote a sefer that was even pro-Zionist. He wrote the first sefer on Zionism, and it's anti-Zionist. So now, poor Kasher got up, 1968, he's going to write his Tkufa Gdola. And what happened in 1967, 68? The haGuela came out. So the Rebbe's already
This was written before?
It was written about the same time. So it comes out that at the same time the Kasher is trying to mount his first response to Vayol Moshe, the Rebbe is already holding by his second sefer, haGuela. All right, Mirz Hashem next time.